So first of all, let me show you around. I'm going to show you around in Release Manager first. I'm going to try to tie all that together that we just talked about. I can't stand this black on black interface, or gray on black. It drives me crazy. I'm old and I can't parse black. How many people use Visual Studio in black mode? Yeah, see, if I come over and look over your shoulder, I can't parse it. I have no idea what you're looking at. You could be in code, you could be in the Solution Explorer, you could be in the I don't know. I need the blue one with all the different colors. Much easier. So this tends to drive me crazy because, so if you all do that, you'll all probably sit and look and go, oh, this is fine, it's black, we love it. Can you see it okay? Do the lights? Is it better with them dim? What's that? Do you want me to change the resolution of it? Or I tend to zoom in on stuff a lot. But
that'll work.
Will that work if I zoom?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you open up Release Manager, there's a couple of things that are administrative. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it, break or after or whatever, but I won't bore you with all the administrative stuff. But essentially, in case anybody's wondering, you can actually take a Release Manager server and hook it up to multiple TFS collections. So you can release with one RM server from a whole bunch of different TFS collections. In my example, I'm in an all-in-one box. Of course, and I'm just in a Brian Keller ALM VM. So you can go download this. If anybody wants to know where to get it from, you can download it and muck around with it yourself. It's a 2013 Update 3 version of his ALM VM. Free download, comes with some labs and stuff. There's actually a lab for Release Manager in there. So you can, if anybody's looking for it, let me know. I'll tell you how to find it. So this is where I connect up to my server, so my TFS box. The other things that I need to do, well, I've also got, by the way, I've got users and I've got groups. So I can set up users as individuals, and then of course I can set up groups. And these can come from your TFS groups or right from Active Directory if you want. So if you already have everything all defined in Active Directory, just pull your ID groups in, just like you do in TFS. So admin stuff out of the way. Then we've got a couple of pick lists that we need to set up. I only generally ever use one of them, and that's stage type. So stages are, what stages do we need to go through? What are the stages that need to be defined in our releases? So in my case, I've got a dev, a prod, a QA, and a staging at this company, at my Fabricate Fighter company. So I've got those 4 stages, and they're just tags, they're just strings, right? There's nothing magical about them, there's nothing special. I can also set up technology types, so I can say, well, maybe I'm deploying to WebSphere, or I'm deploying IIS, or its database, and there's reasons why I want to be able to depict the technology that I'm deploying to in my release path. So I can set up different technology types and then associate those technology types with the machines that I'm deploying into. Okay? I don't use that very often. I haven't found a really great, compelling use for it, but it's interesting. We're going to come back to inventory because that's kind of that's where all the magic sits. So we'll hold off on the magic for a little bit, and we'll come back to that. And I'm going to spend most of my time configuring an app actually because I didn't bring a servers with me. I should have deployed the Laurie's machine. That would have been fun. So I'm in this all-in-one image. So I only have one server, but I got multiple environments, so we can play with that. So once I deploy the Release Manager onto a server out there, so I take my dev server, my UAT, my QA server, whatever it happens to be, and I deploy my Release Manager or my release client, my deployment agent, thank you, onto it. Then I can come over to here and just say scan for new, and those machines will show up in here. They'll start talking to the Release Manager server and go, oh, I'm one, come find me. So it'll just find it, and I can bring it in as a server on my...
Is that across Force and domains and stuff?
Across? Yeah, actually I do. I have one client who's they were 4 companies that just combined into one, and they've got at least 5 domains. Yeah. And every development team is on their own domain. And TFS and Release Manager are on the new domain that they're all striving to get to but haven't yet. So yeah, you're going to do some little tricky stuff.
Okay.
You're gonna have some ghost accounts and things like that, but it works. And there's lots of good, there's blogs out there on how to do it and what to do. The step by step, it's pretty straightforward.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Actually, since you mentioned that's actually makes me think there are different kinds of users in here. By the way, when I set somebody up, I think I'm Brian Keller. So when you set somebody up, first of all, you can turn on or off whether or not they get receive email notifications. So if you've set up your release paths to notify people that, hey, there's a release up there ready to go, I can, if I want, I can ask not to get the email. I'll just check it every day. I don't want to be bombarded with emails. I'm in there looking anyway. Or I can get the reminder myself. The other thing is you want to have a service account here, obviously, right? Just like we often use the build service account from TFS because it kind of flows nicely with everything we're doing with the builds. So they're defined in here as a service account. Then, of course, you have release managers. So a release manager, if somebody's set up in here as a release manager, they essentially can see everything. They can do everything. But I can, as I go through different things, like when I look at servers, no, let me look at it this way. If I look at a release template, and we'll come back to this, so don't peek. Right now it's set up to be view, edit, can release, and manage security by everyone, but then I can divide this up by teams, because I've got this one release manager server, and it might be pointing at a couple of different TFS collections, and it might be deploying 15 different apps into a whole bunch of different environments. So I don't want to see all the retail teams stuff. I just want to see wholesale, or whatever it happens to be. So you can set up. That's where the teams become very important. You set up the teams for that, and then you can set up your release templates and your release paths so that only the team that you want to be able to see it sees it, or at the very least can execute a release to it. So we have servers. We also have environments. Now environments are just something that's defined by you. So if I open up one of these, you just give it a name, it has an owner, and of course a description, and then you link it to a machine. So imagine I've got instant, so this is the simplest of all cases. I've got one machine and I got 3 environments all go into it. Right? Very simple. But I am going to deploy, I'll deploy a web app into dev, QA, and prod in here. They just have different ports and stuff, right? So they're 3 separate deployments, but they just happen to all be in the same machine. But I've got other clients who use this where an environment is actually made up of 3 or 4 machines, right? There's a web server, a database, a Windows server. I've got one client who has, they've got a studio that gets installed onto a client, and then they've got a database and a data server, which are very different things. The data server is kind of a web service for the data. They sort of built their own ESB. It's all very old. But anyway, so they've got a database and a data server and a proxy server, and then they've got players. So they do. I think I might have told you guys about them before too at the last one. Digital signage. So like the ACC, they're putting up the pictures that are going on all the TVs all over the room, and they're all based on different events and things. So the studio lets you orchestrate it. The players are all the machines you're playing to. Then there's a database server and a data server and a proxy server. So when they deploy their app, it has to deploy to all those machines. So their dev environment is made up of 5 machines, and their QA environment is made up of 5 machines. So if you go over to servers, there might be 15 servers sitting here, or 15 machines sitting here, not necessarily all servers. But then they've got 3 environments, and each environment has 5 servers in it. Right? Make sense?
All representing different things.
All representing the different places that we need to. And you'll see how this all comes into play in our release template. So you've seen this before. So this is my release path for this particular application. Right? So what I've got in here is to the dev environment, or to the dev stage, I'm going to use my internet dev environment, So the stage and the environment are two different things, right? The environment is a physical thing, right? It brings with it a set of servers. Whereas the stage is just this little tag that says it's one of my stages I got to go to. I've set up my acceptance step to be automated. Anybody on the web team can approve it. The owner of the deployment is the web team, so if I want to notify if I turn on the email there, it'll notify the whole web team that has been deployed. I'll show you some other ways we can see that. My validation step is automated, right? This is in the dev environment. And Brian Keller, that's me, I'm logged in as Brian. I have to approve it before it can go on to QA. And then QA is similar, although I am going to change it a little bit. I'm going to turn off these automation steps, mostly just to show you guys what happens. So in the QA, at the QA stage, it's now going to go to the QA environment, and it's the QA team that validates it. And the QA, somebody on the QA team has to set it to approve, has to set an approval to say, yeah, this is ready for production. How many people are thinking, nobody's going to let me use this to shove stuff into production? We'll talk about that in a minute. And then production, of course, different again, right? I'm the one who accepts it, and somebody from the ops team is notified about the deployment and validates the deployment. And there really is no need for an approval because at that point it's there. Okay?
Yeah, there's no extra stuff.
There's no. You can approve it, but it's there. You've said yes, I know it's there and it's okay by validating it. So I can have a whole bunch of these, and and imagine when you start. Oh wait, I didn't save that, but I did want it. I'm so used to not wanting to. So you could have a whole list of these. Sorry, go ahead.
And the plus and minus is the that's
thank you, good point.
Yeah.
So the plus and minuses let me add multiple approvers. So I can say this has to be approved by Brian and Adam and somebody from the ops team.
So if you want to do an or, it's really just do a group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. On the approval. So the approval is a little different than the other ones, right? The other ones are just anybody, either that person or anybody from that team can go in and do the approval. Whereas when it gets to the approval stage, you can have multiple people that have to approve it, and that's what each separate one means do multiple. But yeah, if I wanted it to be anybody on a particular, it has to be anybody in QA and anybody in Ops and Brian Keller, then I would just pick two groups. So let me get rid of those so that we don't get stuck not being able to approve something.
When you have the approver part, so you have dev to your UAT basically there. Let's say you had 3 dev environments and 3 UAT, and maybe it goes from 1 to 2. How would you handle that on something like this?
So let's talk about that a minute. Now, when you say that, it's not 3 dev environments is it 3 dev environments that it has to go through?
No, it goes
there
through.
There are 3 different dev
yeah,
environments.
And 3 UAT environments.
Now, are you deploying? Well, generally, so that's what release paths are for. Is for setting up those different, right? So I could have 3 different dev environments, and I could have 3 QA and 3 UAT and whatever. And then I can set up. So I can go into here and say, okay, well, here's my Febricam call center stream 1, we'll call it. And then I could add another new one and call it stream 2, and it is made up of. It also has a dev stage, but I would pick the other dev environment. Okay. And I can have a bunch of different release paths that kind of cross and.
Because sometimes you'll go dev 1 and UAT 3 or something.
Sure.
Like that.
Yeah. So that's a great question because I was just about to talk about that. So I can set up, generally, right? So when you look at the screen, it always looks funny to me because there's only one thing here. I never have only one thing here. I always have a screen full of things. So I've got all the different release paths that I would ever want to go through set up in here, predefined, right? So yeah, I might have a dev 1, QA2, UAT 3, or UAT 1, and then another one that goes 1, 1, 1, and another one that goes 2, 2, whatever. And they may change and rearrange based on the release and what we're doing and the time of year and whatever it happens to be. So everything is very decoupled in here. What's really nice about it is my build is decoupled from my release template, which is kind of decoupled from my components, and all that's decoupled from the release path, the environments, and the servers. They all link together, but they're just links, so I can rearrange them in any form I want.
So would you really change the release path, or would you just create a new one?
Usually I just create more.
Okay.
Usually I end up just having a bunch. Coming up with a good name for them is difficult.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I will often, just so that I know, do stuff like this. You know, just so that looking at it from here, I know that what it goes through.
Yeah. Now the third column, is that generated by the release path itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But there's other places where you don't see that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you did that manually as well.
No. That's defined by my stages. So it just pulls all my stages together.
Okay.
So I could even, I could come in here and add in staging. I don't have a staging environment, but maybe I use prod too, and then of course I don't have anything. You can't just set it up with nothing. What am I missing now? Oh, I can't do it because I've only got 3 environments.
Are you able to,
I can have the same server, but I need a new environment for it.
Are you able to clone those staging paths, or do you have to create it from scratch each time?
No, you create it. No, there are some copies. I don't think in here though. Let me just see. No. You can copy release templates, but not release paths. They're pretty quick to set up though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see where it would be helpful. I've got one client who they want to be able to. I'm trying to remember the reason for it because I argued with him that he didn't need it, but he ended up doing it, and it for the way they did things that made sense. But they have a release path that goes to each environment kind of in a tier. Like there's one that just goes to dev and stops. And there's another one that goes to dev and QA and then stops. And another one goes dev QA. And so they've got sort of one that takes them down the full path that he could possibly do. And there's other ways to do that because you can deploy something and say, I'm deploying it to this release path. I can deploy it to this release path, but QA is my target. So in other words, don't go beyond QA. So you can tell it to stop. But he had a good argument, and I wish I could remember what it was, why he wanted to do that. I never did. I wasn't around. I was showing him how to do it, so I wasn't around long enough to see it happening. So I'll have to call him one day and say, did you really need that? Clients don't like it when you call and say, I told you so, so I should really be careful about that. Okay, so does that make sense? Servers, environments, release paths? I mean, that's the easy stuff. Yeah. You want to take a little? Okay, that's a good time. Okay, we're going to take 10.